right, Malpal. It's time to go out into the field because a year ago, in this very chair, I sat, and actually Pickle was sitting in that chair. Yes. You're doing a great job too.
Thank you.
But went out in the field and I sowed some seeds. I sowed some segment seeds, and I said, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant these seeds, and I'm going to come back in 1 year, and I'm going to harvest them. And that is that I made 5 bold predictions for college football ahead of the 2022 season. 5 bold predictions. Now, the rules were they had to be bold. Your mileage may vary on that, but they had to be, can't be like Texas won't go winless. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
these are pretty bold.
And it had to be measurable. It had to be something that we could definitely say happened or didn't happen. So it can't be like A&M will be pretty good. You know what I mean?
It's got to be like a definitive answer.
Yeah, it's got to be like I couldn't say A&M will be pretty good. I would have to say A&M will win more than 8 games,
right,
or something like that. So it has to be bold and measurable. And so I made 5 predictions a year ago, and it's time to go reap what we sowed. We're going to go take a look at the 5 bold predictions I had in 2022. Let's go to a young Greg Tepper and see what he had to say for the first bold prediction. So I have 5 bold Texas college football predictions for the 2022 season, starting with...
Boom! The state of Texas will have 2 national semifinalists.
So we've got... How about that? The state of Texas will have 2 national semifinalists, and they damn sure did, Bob. They sure did. TCU, of course, was a national finalist, and eventually, but semifinalists as well. They made the college football playoff. First Texas team to ever make the college football playoff. They did that, and Mary Hardin-Baylor made the Division III national semifinals.
Good one.
That's a check. Now, I did say if you go back and you watch it, we'll get to who I thought was going to be in there. I certainly mentioned Mary Hardin-Baylor. I also thought Midwestern State had a chance to make it. Midwestern State, and then Angelo State as well. We thought there was a couple teams from the Lone Star Conference that had an opportunity to make it there in the Division II ranks, but they don't ask you how, they ask you how many, and they got 2 Texas national semifinalists. So that's a win for old Greg. Listen, it's all going great. Nothing to worry about. Let's get to prediction number 2.
The state of Texas will have a Heisman finalist.
Wow!
So smart.
The state of Texas will have a Heisman finalist. And Max
You're
Duggan.
right.
Max Duggan.
All right, I'm curious, though. Who'd you think it was going to be, though?
Oh, I think you know who I thought it was going to be. Max Duggan. I nailed it.
Well.
Everyone knew that Max Duggan was going to become a household name.
Of course.
And I just sat here and I was a bold truth teller. I said, hey, just watch out for this quarterback. I know that he's kind of underachieved while he was been there, and we don't even know if he's going to win the starting job there at TCU. But, don't you worry. He's going to go and make it all the way to New York. Also, Bijan Robinson.
Correct. There you go.
I mentioned it if you go watch the whole video. I definitely mentioned the early favorite here is Bijan Robinson. It's going to be him. And then I was like, but maybe Quinn Ewers, maybe I think I mentioned.
Well, he was the only Texas guy invited, right?
Oh, who? Max Duggan?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. But then I also think I mentioned that I thought that the A&M quarterback would have an outside shot if he had an opportunity to get in there. The freshman who's going to start this year, whose name is escaping me at the moment. The star from Bridgeland. Why am I blanking on
Connor Wigman.
Yeah, Connor Wigman. I thought Connor Wigman was an outside dark horse as well. Yeah. He could have done the Johnny football thing where he kind of gets in there and then goes nuts. But again, that's another win.
It's a win. It counts.
2-0. Mallory. Let Tepper cook. I'm 2-0 in my college football predictions. I'm sure there's not an iceberg anywhere ahead. Let's go to prediction number 3.
Boom. Of the 12 FBS teams in Texas, 8 will be bowl eligible.
So.
It's a pretty big number.
Oh, my goodness. This guy doesn't miss. Of the 12, because now there's 13, of the 12 Texas FBS teams.
9.
8. I said that 8.
You said 8, but 9 were actually bowl eligible.
TCU, Texas, Texas Tech, Baylor. 4 from the Big 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're already cruising. UTSA, that's 5. North Texas, that's 6. Rice, who got in. Rice is interesting. We'll leave them aside for now. So that's 6 for now. But then you
Houston.
had Texas A&M.
No, Houston.
I'm sorry, Houston and SMU. That's 8. It does count as 9 if you count Rice. Now, Rice was not bowl eligible. They finished 5 and 7.
Yeah,
but
they're smart.
because of the academic standards, which is kind of the tiebreaker whenever they need teams for bowls, they did go to a bowl. So 9 of the 12, I even undershot it. I was playing conservative.
You were. You knew this was going to happen. You were like,
my
I don't
gosh.
want to give my secret away.
Mallory, 3-0. I'm just like,
I'm
basically
proud
take
of
what
mine.
I'm saying to the bank. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going great for me, and there's nothing that can stop this freight train. Here's prediction number 4.
This is Texas's last season in the Big 12. Now, they're not supposed to leave until 2025.
Yes.
Eh.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Close.
So
You were just a year
basically,
off.
I was there, and at that point, it was still that they were going to stay in the league till 2025.
Mm-hmm.
That they were going to go until the grant of rights expired, and they were going to move to the SEC starting in 2025. Texas was.
Mm-hmm.
But I went super bold, and I said, this is the last year. They're going to move starting next year.
Mm-hmm.
Incorrect. They will be playing in the Big 12 this year. But they did, if you want to give me partial credit, which don't, but if you want to give me partial credit,
They did
move
that,
up
Yes.
the exit date.
Yes.
That they aren't staying until 2025. And if you want to give me partial credit, which again, do not, but the spirit of what I was saying was that they were not going to make it till the end of the grant of rights.
Right.
That is true. That is true, but I did say that 2022 would be Texas's last season in the Big 12. It was not. And so that is a miss. But look, nobody's perfect. I'm sure we're going to finish strong with the boldest and best and most locked and loaded prediction. Let's hit it.
Houston will become the first Texas team to be selected for the college football playoff, which means that they would fill the Cincinnati gap that was last year.
Okay. So yeah, this is an interesting little time capsule, and I found myself like I enjoy doing this segment honestly, not because it's just fun, but also because it's an interesting time capsule to go back to what we were thinking before the season. Because once the season gets going, like all these narratives get created, and we kind of forget what we were thinking going into it.
Right.
The narrative around Houston was that they were going to be the new Cincinnati.
Right.
That they were going to romp through the American Athletic Conference. They were going to roll into, and they were going to become the new team, the new group of 5 team to make the college football playoff.
Right.
They were loaded, and everything they had coming back, we all thought this was the year for Dana Holgerson's Cougars. And it became abundantly clear, I would say, in week 1.
Right.
When they went to UTSA and they needed triple overtime? Was that it?
Yeah,
To
it was
beat-
triple overtime when they beat
beat
to beat
UTSA?
UTSA, and they did beat UTSA. But I mean, it was close.
It showed some flaws, and at that
Yes.
point, I think all of us went like, "Uh-oh." And then the next week, they go to Tech and they lose, and that was one that we were like, that was a really important. If you think about it, we were talking about what a really important game that was for Houston, not just because they were going to, not just because they were going to be joining the Big 12, but also were they joining the Big 12 at that point? Maybe, I don't know. But
I think
also,
so.
but this was Joey McGuire's first year, and you need to go in there and get this win. Go in there and get this win. They lose that game, then they follow up and come home, and you remember what happened next?
Was that the Tulane game?
It was Kansas.
Kansas.
They came home and they lost by 18
right.
to Kansas.
Kansas at
That's
home.
all like the Jalen
Right.
Daniels coming out party, and they got
Yep.
mowed down. And suddenly we're like, oh, this defense might stink.
Right.
Like this defense might stink. And then the next week they play the Bayou Bucket against Rice, and they won by a touchdown, and it was
That
real
was
tight.
close.
Then they lose to Tulane, and it was just like at that point. I mean, once they lost to Tech, they were out of the college football playoff conversation. But it's so interesting to think back on that because there's one team. I feel like there's one team every year that we all hitch our wagon to that ends up kind of falling short. If you remember, in 2021, it was A&M. Put them on the cover of the magazine. We talked about they were national title contenders, and they had a super disappointing year. And last year's Houston's turn. It's just interesting now to think back on like all the playoff hype we had, and now that seems decades ago.
It seems so distant too with Houston now. I mean, like the same narrative this year. Like they go into the season playing UTSA first at home, and that's going to really set the tone for that Houston team.
And so Houston ends up going 7-5. They win their bowl game, go 8-5. But like, I think considering the expectations, just a huge disappointment. Now again, there was a Texas team in the playoff, just not the one anyone of us saw coming.
Right.
So overall,
pretty good.
3-2 on my college football predictions.
Not bad.
Not bad.
3 and 2.5. I'll give you that little half. Yeah, or 3.5 and 1.5.
I don't know. I'm gonna call it 3-2. Again, it has to be measurable, and by the measurables, I went 3-2. And so that is a look at my bowl predictions from a year ago, heading into the 2022 college football season. Coming up Thursday, do we have a show Thursday?
Yeah,
we do.
Oh, yeah, Pickle will be back.
Coming up Thursday, my bold.
Actually, no. I'm sorry. I just realized Pickle and I are gonna be out all day on Thursday. So
do we have a show Friday?
Yes.
Coming up Friday, my bold college football predictions for 2023. So stay tuned for that.